everybody, this is Laura at the Painted Chair, and we have started a to-go kit option with basically everything that you need to paint a sign. And this video is designed to walk you through some of the steps for painting a sign. It's very easy and fun to do at home. So what I have here, I'll explain all of my tools here. This is your stencil. A ruler is optional, but sometimes a good idea to help get your stencil in the right place. I have some tape. You can use masking tape. This is actually painter's tape. Makeup sponges will be supplied in your to-go kit. Push pins will be supplied in your to-go kit. A brush will be supplied in your to-go kit. And then I also have some baby wipes. Baby wipes, Clorox wipes will work. Sometimes you don't even need them. So, and then the other thing that's optional is a pair of gloves. So let's go ahead and get started painting our base color. So we want to paint with the wood grain. You can see my grain is going this way. I'm actually going to turn my sign like this so that I can paint with the grain side to side. Move this out of the way. So I'm just going to get my paint wet. I'm going to start somewhere in the middle and just do light coats of this. You can leave some of the board showing, or you can completely do the whole board. I always kind of start with a wet brush in the middle, big sweeping strokes kind of going out to my edges. You can see how they look real pretty and feathered, but everybody's board will look different, and that is okay. Almost done with this. We want to go fairly light and in layers with this. If we use too much paint, then our stencil might not stick as well. So I'm going to leave it just like this because for me, I like a lot of my board to show, but you can always go in and fill that in a little bit. You can also do your sides of your board as well if you don't want them to be the wood color. So we're going to take a little break here. This is the point when you would hair dry your board or let it dry for 5 or 10 minutes before we go on to the next step. So we're going to take a little break. And back. One thing I forgot to mention, go ahead and wash this brush out as well if you want to be able to use it again. If your paint dries on the brush, it's very, very difficult to get it out. So go ahead and either wash your brush at this time or stick it in a cup of water and wash it after you're finished with the sign. So now we are ready to put the stencil on. So this is where a ruler can come in handy if you feel like measuring. If you measure, you just want to see that you're equal distances side to side. If your sign is horizontal and there's letters, you might want to measure underneath the first letter, underneath the last letter. For this particular design, just breathe. I'm going to eyeball this because it's a pretty simple design. So once you get that stencil where you want it, you're going to take your masking tape or your painter's tape. Big piece just like this. And you're going to stick it right down the middle and kind of wrap it underneath your board, just like this. Now we're going to start the peeling process. One more thing you're going to want to have handy. Can you throw me that pair of scissors? Is a pair of scissors. I have written instructions as well that will come with your kit, and everything that you need will be in the written instructions. So see how I grab that bottom layer and I'm basically peeling the stencil up to the tape. And then I'm going to cut that bottom layer off. And this blue part is sticky now. This is our actual stencil, so it's gonna stick to the board. So I'm just pressing that in with my fingers a little bit. This is very important. The tape needs to go away at this point before we finish getting the backing off the stencil. If we left this tape here, we could get some of the backing caught and it's pretty difficult to get out. So what I do, take the tape off, peel it over like this, and then we stick it on the board. So I'm just gonna take a minute here, smooth this in a little bit with my fingers. And now I'm gonna get the top layer started. Move this tape out of the way. I actually push the stencil into the board a little bit and then grab that top layer with my fingernail. And so what I'm doing at this point is I'm rolling this stencil layer. So I've gotten all of the transfer paper off. Any of the blue, we're going to save the backing, which is kind of waxy. You'll just place this next to you with the waxy side up, which is our stencil. And once you've taken the transfer paper off, just kind of press in a little bit if you see any areas that are sticking up. Getting that off, and then we will resume. And then the last thing we're going to do before we start painting is we're going to tape around our edges, kind of make a frame so that we don't get paint where it's not supposed to be. Sometimes I'll just tape areas where it's pretty close, the stencil is really close to the board. And sometimes I will just make a frame all the way around, which is probably what I'll do today. We don't want to put our tape in our stencil where we're going to need to paint, just on the edges. Okay, so that's done. Now I hope you've saved a little bit of your background color, because something that we do is we actually take our background color and we do our first coat on top of the stencil with our background color, and what that does is it seals up the stencil. So what I always do, I take too much paint, come over here, tap off real good, kind of charge up my makeup sponge with paint, and then I tap up and down. See how I'm keeping my sponge really close to where I'm working? That is ideal. We don't want to be going up real high. That's going to put too much pressure and the paint's going to go right underneath the stencil. The other thing is we don't want to bend our sponge. We always want to tap and keep that sponge from bending. The third thing is we're always going up and down. We're not going like this in a painting type motion. Those are all things that can make the paint go right underneath your stencil. So I'm going to put one coat of this paint, the background color, all over where I'm going to be painting. It will dry in a few minutes, and then I will do my actual colors. On here, I've put all of my base coat on top of my stencil of my background color. It only takes a few minutes to dry, and then I'm ready for my actual colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide what colors I want what, which I think I will do this light pink for the Just Breathe. So same concept, I'm getting plenty of paint on my sponge and coming over here and tapping off. And see how I'm tapping real fast and keeping my sponge real low. Sometimes I'll go back and forth just a little bit and work out my sponge marks as I go. By back and forth, I mean tapping up and down. Back and forth. So I'm going to have my cameraman come up real close so you can see what a good first coat looks like, because we want it to be real sheer. You can see there that you can still see some navy blue around the edges, and that is really good. We don't want to try to get in there and get paint in all of those edges. That is what causes it to bleed. When we take the stencil off, you will not see that there's a little bit of blue around the edges. So that's very important, and it's a good sign that you're painting correctly. So what we will do is one sheer coat about like that of all of our colors on our whole board. And then we will come back and decide if we want to do a second coat. So I will take a break right here and show you what a completed stencil looks like before it gets peeled. Welcome back, you guys. I just wanted to give you a good close-up of what your completed stencil should look like. This is what 2 light coats should look like for you guys. We don't want to do any more than 3 coats. And you could look at that and say, oh, well, I can still see a little bit of the color underneath. But that's really what we want. We do not want to slather this with paint. We just want some light layering. The more paint we put on, the more chance of it bleeding and the more chance of the stencil bringing some paint back up. So this is really what we want, and it's going to look beautiful once we peel it off. So I'm going to get started with the peeling process. Basically, after your stencil is painted, just give it 3 or 4 minutes. You just don't want to see any shiny wet areas on your stencil before you peel. So if everything looks dry, you can run your hand, the back of your hand, over your stencil. If nothing comes off on your hand, it's ready to peel. We like to peel while the paint is just a little bit damp, so it's best not to wait too long after you paint it. So I'm getting the tape off the sides first, and then I'm going to find an edge and start the peeling process. So I can rip it and tear it if I want. You don't have to be particularly gentle with this process. The goal is to get all the big stuff off on your first pull, and then any of the little bits between letters we can get with our push pin that's included in your kit. So you can see how that's coming right off. See how pretty that color looks. Anything I can grab with my fingers, I do. Areas that needed any touch up. But there you go, you guys. Very easy, fun, rewarding. Kids can do this, adults can do this. We have many, many designs to choose from that you can order from us. You can come and pick up your sign kit from us, or we are happy to deliver here in Farmington. So you can look on our website, thepaintedchairfarmington.com/open-paint to see the designs and make your ordering selections there. One last thing I wanted to tell you, we are also supplying the sawtooth hangers for the back of these signs. Very, very simple. Just a hammer. You'll want to measure your middle point of your sign. So this is a 16-inch sign. My middle point is 8 inches. I'm just going to get the middle of this hanger at the 8-inch mark. Voila. Ready for hanging. Of course, if you just want to set it on something and don't need the hanger, that's fine too. But we hope that this video was really helpful for you in creating your sign. If you have any further questions, I'm always just an email or a text or a Facebook message away. My name is Laura. Feel free to text, call, message me if you have any further questions. Happy painting, you guys.